Free plugins are one of the best ways for beginning engineers or producers to really get started in music because stock plugins don't always get quite the sound you're looking for. But unfortunately, free plugins aren't always full of quality. But we're going to take a look at a fantastic compressor that you can get for free. Welcome back. Thank you for checking out another Top Mop Tuesday review. Today we are taking a look at the Rough Rider 3 from Audio Damage. I've used a couple other Audio Damage plugins before, and honestly, I've never really been disappointed. I can find a use for any of these plugins, whether it be a specific instrument type or maybe it would fit a certain style that I'm going to use. The Rough Rider 3 is no exception. So we're going to go right into it and go through what settings and what all it has to offer. We'll just work our way left to right through the entire signal flow of this plugin. Here on the left, you have the input level. Obviously, that's controlling the level of input. Right underneath that, you have this thing called full bandwidth. So apparently in a previous version of this plugin, Audio Damage had what they called a warmer. It was an automatic effect that they added an on or off switch with the full bandwidth. So I haven't actually seen a description of what Audio Damage says the warmer does, but with the full bandwidth on, it evenly compresses across the entire frequency spectrum. With it off and the warmer essentially engaged, it warms up whatever signal it's on. It boosts a little bit of the mid frequencies, not giving it so much compression, but rather letting it sit higher in comparison to the highs and lows. I'll show you a quick example of it on as well as off. So if you paid attention there, you can hear a little bit of a difference. You hear a little bit more of the mids coming out of it rather than just the full clarity and evenness of the entire frequency spectrum. Moving on from there, you have the sidechain controls. You can turn on or off an external sidechain as well as set the key input up in the top left corner. But right here, you have what is the sidechain high pass filter. So it took me a couple minutes because I don't like to actually read how things work. I like discovering it for myself sometimes. I messed around with the sidechain high pass filter, and I think I figured out exactly what it's supposed to be doing. I wasn't sure if when the sidechain hits, if it throws a high pass filter on the channel it's on, or if it's putting a high pass filter on the key input. Turns out it was on the key input. So it sets it up so that the low frequencies will not trigger the compressor. A perfect example of this would be wanting to compress a kick and have the key input set as the bass. So you would use it whenever you want the attack of a bass to stick out a little bit from the kick rather than the two just blending together or the kick completely drowning out the bass. So the way it would be set up, whenever the bass is hit, it would compress the kick. But the thing with basses is that they can have a lot of low resonant frequencies that will continue after the initial hit. With the high pass filter on, you can cut those low frequencies off so that only the attack is triggering the compressor, rather than the low frequencies of the bass that would continue after the initial attack, triggering the compressor and continually pulling the kick down when the bass isn't going for any attacking note. Hopefully that made a little bit of sense. From there, you can set your ratio. It has a very high ratio. You can squash the crap out of this thing. Most of the time, I just stick around a 5 at most. After that, you have this sensitivity here in the middle. The sensitivity acts as the threshold. That's all it is. So you just click and drag and you can move the sensitivity up and down. Whenever you hit play, this blue line here acts as the indicator signifying how much signal is coming into the compressor. And then when the compressor is being triggered, you will see a bunch of gray pieces up here coming down. That will show how much pull down is coming from the compressor. After that, you have your makeup gain here on the right, as well as all of the regular settings that you have, the attack, release, mix, and output levels. But I'm sure you want to hear it in action. It's a really cool plugin. Like I said, it's a great compressor, especially as a free compressor. I messed around with it on a couple different instruments. We'll show it on the toms real quick. It wasn't quite what I normally like on my drums, but I could see it being used in a lot of mixes. I'll show you what I mean here. Let me solo up my two tom channels, and I'm going to show you what the toms sound like by themselves with my original mix where I used the CLA 2A, and then I will show you as well what they sound like with the Rough Rider. So we'll take a look real quick at the settings I have for the CLA 2A on my rack and floor toms here, It's just going to be a quick snippet, and then we'll take a look at some of the settings I was able to get with the Rough Rider. Nice and boomy, that's how I like my toms. So now we're going to take a look at the Rough Rider. So top is the settings I have for the rack tom, bottom is the settings I have for the floor tom. Now I might have been able to get a different sound, maybe not necessarily a better sound, but I could have gotten a different sound with a little bit more time. But we'll take a listen to what these sound like, and then I'll explain my thoughts on it. So like I said, maybe with a little bit more time, I'd be able to get a sound closer to a booming cannon sound rather than what I have here. To me, these sound like they have a lot more attack. They almost have more of an attention to high end than anything else. So while that doesn't always work great on what I want on a floor tom or a rack tom, they would work perfectly for a guitar or maybe a bass. So I decided to jump over to the guitars I had, and rather than doing each channel individually, I just threw one on the guitar bus channel. But we'll take a listen again to what I had before. So as a bus compressor, I was using the CLA 3A. This is normally my go-to guitar compressor. I really like the sound it has. It almost has a little bit of warmth in it compared to most other compressors rather than like the 2A or any 1176s. But again, we'll listen through with the 3A and then we'll put the Rough Rider on and see what we get. Now we'll take a look at the Rough Rider. So these are the settings I came up with. Like I said, while I didn't like it on drums, I thought it could work well on guitars. This thing got me a really good sound in my opinion. It gave me a nice crisp edge to my guitars without it becoming harsh. So like I said, I liked it a lot on this. I think in this instance, for this type of mix, when I'm doing something that's kind of punk, the Rough Rider fits in really well, especially compared to what I had before with the 3A. I think I was going a little too much on the warm side with the 3A rather than letting the edge come out, and the Rough Rider 3 brought that out perfectly. You can also use it on bass. I was able to get kind of a cool sound out of it. We'll pull it up here. So I had the CLA 2A on one of my bass tracks to begin with. So I'll show you what it sounded like with the CLA 2A, and then we'll throw the Rough Rider on it. And then pull out the Rough Rider here. So the difference isn't quite as notable in this instance, but I think the Rough Rider fits the tone I was going for with the bass. So does the 2A, but either of them would have been a great choice for this bass. If you saw my last review, you'll see it was about the CLA 2A. Again, one of my favorite drum compressors I use. Go check it out. I'll have a link for it down below. There's also some presets that it took me a minute to actually realize they were there. You have right here in the dead top center, says default preset, and you can scroll through with a couple different styles. I didn't get the chance to actually try any of them out, but Audio Damage usually does pretty well with having some nice presets to get you started. And you see here that you can even create your own presets, have them saved under the user section. Then to get out of that, you just hit that close there. But overall, this is a great plugin for compression, for clarity, and just adding detail to the higher frequencies. The Rough Rider 3 is a great choice, especially if you're a beginner and you want to learn the inner workings of a plugin, how to use attack, release, ratios, sensitivities, how they all relate to each other. This is a great way to do it. You can even try out side chaining and check out the whole high pass filter action on it. I'm gonna have a link below where you can check it out and get a download for it and start your mixing today. But thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Like I said before, Tuesday is review day. Plugins, gear, anything I have my hands on, I'm gonna take a look at and I'm gonna show you guys what I think of it and try to explain the inner workings of it. So it's a little bit of a walkthrough as well as a review. But again, thank you guys so much for watching.